What's up everyone, my name is Wong and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a comparison that spans two very different price points, but with something in common. They're all Nikon Z-mount. So on here, we have the Nikon Premium f1.2 S-line lenses. But to make things a bit fair, I also do have a Nikon 50. This is a pretty new lens, f1.4, and also the 35mm f1.4. In fact, the video that you're looking at right now is shooting with a 35 f1.4. So that way, we're also comparing both, the flagship lens, but also a little bit more affordable and compact choices. Now, on the other side, we have the Yongnuo Z-mount lenses, all native, autofocus. They're surprisingly capable for the price. I'm gonna tell you about that in just a crazy second. But today we're gonna break down how they stack up between the 35, the 50, and the 85. So first of all, let's talk about why I have those three lenses. Those are my to-go lenses, okay? The reason for those focal length, the 35, the 50, the 85, because they cover some of the most popular and versatile category in photography. For example, the 35 is perfect for street, for documentary, for environmental portraits. The 50 gives you a very classic, natural field of view kind of look, the nifty 50. It's great for everyday use. And of course, one of my favorites is the 85. Well, that is your to-go portrait lens, okay? It made the amazing background, just blur it out, and the bokeh is nice, the compression, the separation. It's just a lovely portrait lens. All of those lenses are also ideal for doing video. So for those video shooters out there looking for something lightweight, something fast, you might not want to sleep on the Yongnuo lens. But let's talk about the build and quality first. So let me unbox them real quick. This is the YN35. You know what? I'm surprised. It is actually feel pretty solid. I thought it's gonna be full-on plastic, but that's not the case. And there's also a little USB port where you can use it to update the lens. There's a auto focus, manual focus switch. And it comes with a lens hood. And of course a lens cap. And yeah. That's about it. The only thing is that the lens cap is a little tight, but not too much of a problem. But let's open up the other two lenses. All right, here you go. This is the 50mm. Same thing. A lens cap, a lens hood, auto focus, manual focus switch. Oh, it also have. Oh, you know what? I didn't even talk about this earlier. It does have a function button too. There's one on the 35 and two on the 50. Okay, a very smooth focus ring. Also pretty good, I think actually better than the 35. All right, let's open the last one, the 85. All right, this is the 85mm f1.8. Same thing. Lens cap, lens hood, USB-C port, and there is one button instead of two, one function button, autofocus, manual focus switch, and a focus ring. And that's it. Let's try the lens hood for this guy. This one is a little bit tighter than the 50, I think. It's actually hard to say because I don't hear the click as well. But there you go. All right, from my left to right, your right to left, 35, 50, 85, okay? And if I take up the lens hood, you can kind of compare what it looks like height-wise. Oh, see? A little bit tight for the lens hood right there. See? Okay. There you go. All right, now let's take a look on the other spectrum, okay? Now, of course, this is the complete opposite spectrum, okay? You got the very new 35mm, the 50mm, and the 85mm. These are all f1.2 S lens, and they're huge. They are big. They're weather sealed. They're built like a tank, and every ring is very precise. And the design is just professional, like you can tell. And let's look at the 50 as well, the f1.4. All right, so this is the Nikon 50 f1.4. Still very sturdy, very light. I mean, obviously much smaller than the 50 f1.2. Let's do a quick comparison. This is the 50 from YN, from Yongnuo, the YN lenses 50 f1.8. And this is the Nikon 50 f1.4. They're both pretty lightweight. And you know, I was expecting the YN lens to be a lot cheaper in quality wise, but it doesn't feel like it. It actually feels pretty sturdy. It is cheap in price, but it is not cheap in a quality wise. So I guess we have to go to the next round is to figure out how's the image quality. All right, now we're gonna do some tests with all the different lenses. I have placed a bunch of objects here on the table to show you maybe the difference between the focus and also maybe how it blurs out. You know, let's put this a bit further. Let's put this over there. This is something interesting. The Nikon Z f1.2, the shots are a lot brighter. And I'm not sure why, because I'm having exactly the same setting, but I'm not getting the same brightness. Like my reading right now on my camera is showing that the shot is a little bit more overexposed. Same for the f1.4. So what I'm guessing is that there is some vignetting or something to make the lens a little bit darker on the YN lens. All right, let's move to the 50. All right, let's move on to the 85. All right, for the 85, I have to back up a bit because I can't get the focus. All right, instead of focusing on the leg star, I'm gonna focus on the lens swipe now, especially on the W. All right, and lastly, let's try out the Nikon one. One thing I instantly noticed is that the YN lens are a little bit darker, or it has a stronger vignette at least, and the color seems to be a little bit different too. But let's take a look at on the computer. All right, now we are at my PC and let's look at the photos. I gotta say, I am both surprised, amazed, and a little bit horrified because I think I should have been spending so much money on first-party lens that may not be justified, you know? If I'm shooting with the f1.2 for the best of the best, and I'm using it for, you know, very high-end portraits or even for, you know, billboard, it makes sense. But I do also have some lenses that are, you know, more on the lower end, a little bit cheaper, a little bit more, you know, budget-friendly, let's put it that way. And they're still more expensive than third-party lens. But how much of a difference? Now, let's take a look, okay? One thing I also have done is that I shot all of them a little bit different in a sense that I should have shot it more consistent, you know, making sure they all shoot in the same shutter speed. But because the 35 is f2, the other lenses are all f1.8, so it kind of threw me off a little bit. So I kind of changed it up a little bit. However, every single group of photos were all shot in the same shutter speed and same aperture. It's just the shutter speed could be different among the three different group of lenses, but the three lenses that are in each group are all the same. Hopefully that makes sense. But let's take a look at the photos real quick. If you look at the photo right now, very soon you'll see that there's also one thing that's kind of strange, is that some of the lenses are more cropped in, even though I put it on a tripod and they all should be from the same, you know, position. But some photos are more cropped in, especially for the f1.2 lens on the Nikon side. It could be because it is, you know, their photography lens. They go from the front of the lens to the subject, so they're a little bit closer. than, you know, maybe like a cinema lens, a T lens, or it's like, you know, from the sensor. So it's a little bit different. Not a biggest issue unless you need that kind of consistency, but you'll see real quick. So let's take a look at 35 lenses first. All right. So if you look at this image right now, this is the 35 f1.2 from Nikon. Great lens. Everything looks great. I'll go to the crop in just a second. This is the Nikon 35 f1.4. As you can see, crop out a little bit. Still great. And then this is the Yongnuo f2. Okay, the 35 f2. What you see consistently over the other photos is that the Yongnuo lens has a little bit of a vignette, but that's not something that's, you know, hard to fix if you know, just do post-processing, but it's something that you should keep in mind. The f1.4 on the Nikon side and the f2 on the Yongnuo side, they're a little bit closer when it comes to the crop factor. Like these two are pretty kind of similar, but the Nikon 35 f1.2 is a little bit closer, as you can tell. Okay, again, we're gonna go into crop ones later. Let's look at the 50. So this is the 50. This is the Nikon f1.2. Okay, this is the Nikon 50 f1.4. Again, a little bit crop out. And this is the Yongnuo f1.8. Okay, now this one is kind of interesting because on this last one, the Yongnuo one, the f1.8 is closer to the Nikon f1.4. However, in this one, the 50 on the Yongnuo side is closer to the Nikon f1.2, which is this one, than it is the f1.4, which is a lot more uncrop. Another thing I noticed between the 250 is that the Yongnuo warp stuff a little bit differently. So if you pay attention to like maybe like right here of the photo, you can see on the Nikon, this is 50 1.2, Yongnuo f1.8. You can see the round is a little bit different. Do you see that? Again, Yongnuo f1.8, the 50 f1.2. I feel like the 1.8 on the Yongnuo side kind of stretched the photo more like this way. Let's also look at the 50 1.4 from Nikon. Okay, Nikon 50 1.4, Yongnuo 50 1.8. I know the crop is different, but they seem a little bit more consistent look, but definitely look different than the 50 f1.2. That's an interesting to look at. Now let's look at the 85. So this is the Nikon 85 f1.2, and then this is the Yongnuo 50 1.8. The crop actually pretty similar between these two. Again, there is no 85 f1.4 on the Nikon side, and it's not as of this recording. But you can tell the crop are pretty similar. One thing that's very obvious is that the Yongnuo side, the vignette is pretty strong. So if you look at it, look at this corner right here. Again, this is the 85 from Nikon, and then this is a Yongnuo. It's really obvious there's a strong vignette there. Now, let's look at the greedy part, the zoom in, okay? Now, this is the 35. This is the 35 f1.2 from the Nikon side. Again, sharp, amazing lens, one of the latest lenses that Nikon has released. If you look at it, everything looks, really clear. There is a little bit of, what's the word for it? I forgot. Fringing. So you can see a little green fringe here and a bit, purple here and there. Not too much. Nothing you can really fix in post easily, but there is a little bit, okay? Now let's look at the Nikon 35 1.4. You can see the contrast is not as sharp, between this one and the one previously, okay? Now let's look at the Yongnuo 35 1.8. It's pretty good, isn't it? Especially when I compare it to the Nikon 35 1.4. Ready? Nikon 35 1.4. Yongnuo f2. Like, I feel like the Nikon one, the contrast on those little patterns is not as obvious compared to the Yongnuo 35. The dark seems to be more deeper. But the difference is not that big, and I have to zoom in this close to get to see the difference. Even compared to the Nikon 35 1.2. Like, yeah, look at this text,
this is a better, I feel like, good way to look at it too. Right here, Nikon 35 1.2, Nikon 35 1.4, and then the Yongnuo f2. It is pretty sharp. All right, let's look at even at f4. You know, this is at f4. Now Nikon 35 1.2, Nikon 35 1.4, and then Yongnuo f2. Again, Nikon, the f1.2, the $2,000, $3,000 lens, obviously a little bit sharper. But between the Nikon f1.4 and the Yongnuo f2, difference is not that big. Like if I swap them, I don't think you can tell the difference. And that's me even zooming in that close. Okay, let's look at the 50. This is 50 shooting at f1.8 now on off the lens. So let's take a look. 50 f1.2, Nikon Z, great, sharp. Nikon 50 f1.4, a little bit more grayish, things a little bit more, you know, less contrast. Yongnuo 50 f1.8. Now, it looks a little bit different, right? It's a little bit darker, and I wonder if that contribute to it, but it's not bad. Let's look at that f4. Okay, let's zoom in. Nikon 50 f1.2 lens, the Nikon 50 f1.4, the Yongnuo 50 f1.8, and this is all at f4. The color is a bit green on the Yongnuo side. A bit warmer too, as you can tell, especially when I look at this. And I set them all at the same white balance. I can see the Yongnuo one right here, a little bit more yellow. Nikon, a little bit more blue. Okay, but again, this is not something that's really important, especially if you do post-processing. All right, let's look at the 85 f1.8 is where we shot it. So we're gonna look at the lenses. So this 85 f1.8 or shooting at f1.8, okay? Now let's look at the f1.2 lens. Very sharp, you know. I was focusing somewhere around here. You know, you can tell it's like between the dark blue and the light blue. This is where the focus point is. You can see lots of detail in here. Let's look at the 85 from Yongnuo. Not as sharp. Not bad, right? Before, after. Before, after. Like, it's pretty close. Like, scarily close. Right? All right, let's look at 85 at the f4 level, okay? Let's zoom in. This is the f1.2 lens. Very sharp, you know. You can see all the text. The lines are very, very obvious, you know. Now let's look at the Yongnuo one. A little bit fuzzier, but not bad, right? Okay. Now here's one last thing I want to point out. So let's go back to the 50. Let's look at the 50 f1.8. One thing I noticed is that the edge of stuff a little bit different on the bokeh. So let's look at the 85 Nikon first. I feel like the bokeh is nicer when it goes from sharp to unsharp. Let me also draw a layer for you to show you guys what I'm talking about. So right here, this line right here, if you're focusing, looking from here to here, okay, those 2 points, this is a Nikon f1.2 lens. And then you look at a Yongnuo f1.8 lens, it feels like there's a little separation between the edge of the item and then another edge and then a little bit light here. So like this part is a little bit darker and then a little bit lighter than the edge, okay? It's a little weird kind of fringing situation there. If you look at the Nikon side, it's not as obvious. There's still a little bit, but the Yongnuo one, I feel like this line is really obvious right there. Again, I am zooming in so close to see that. If you remember, this is what the photos look like when you look at it wide. It is, you have to zoom in very, very close to get to that point to see that difference. So, yeah. Let's talk about pricing.
Okay, I think I am pleasantly and weirdly surprised. The sharpness of the Nikon f1.2, of course, they're great. Like, they're really sharp, wide open at f1.2, and f1.8 are even better in sharpness. The f1.4 lens, the non-S-line, it still does a pretty good job, but definitely not as good as f1.2. But the Yongnuo lens, the one that is the cheapest here, are performing really good for what it is. And that begs the question, do you really need to buy the most expensive lens, you know? Like, yeah, there's some places that are a little bit more, you know, blurred out. Bokeh is a little bit, you know, busier. The highlights, you know, might have a little bit outline. But when it comes to like color and contrast, it's not way off. Like the S lens, you know, the contrast, the color, always great, straight out of the lens. Like Nikon's, their color science and their lens is amazing. The Yongnuo's ones are a little bit different, but if you're shooting in RAW, like you can really push it to however you want in post, so it doesn't really matter as much. So then let's talk about the most important part, is the price. For example, the Nikon 50 f1.2 is 2100. The 50 f1.4 is about 600 bucks. The Yongnuo 50, however, this guy is only about $350. Insane. 35. The latest best Nikon 35 S f1.2 S lens, 2300. The Nikon 35, where's my 35? Let's go. 35 1.4 is about $600. The Yongnuo 35 f2 is only about $370. Lastly, the 85 is still on my lens right now. The f1.2 is 2800. Insane price tag. While the Yongnuo 85 f1.8 is under $400. So this is how you should look at this. You know, if you want the best of the best, of course, you know, go with Nikon. That makes sense. You know, they are making lens for their camera. Of course, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be sharp, but it's gonna cost you. They're solid. They're great prime lens, amazing quality. But value-wise, Yongnuo is delivered pretty good quality. Like, for the price, it's crazy. So there's not really an answer to say which one is perfect, but it depends on how you use it, right? If you're a professional, you shoot photography for a living or video for a living, maybe go for the the Nikon S-line, the f1.2 or 1.4, you know, or even the 1.8, you know. But if you want something that's affordable, something that you want to try out, then, you know, go with the Yongnuo one. This is like few $100. And like, let's say you even want a lens for traveling. You want a lens for you to, you know, play around or try out. It's crazy. Like with few $100, sometimes it's even cheaper than renting a lens. So, you know, if you want to try out fun stuff, or like, you know, if you want to play with paint, sand, color sand, smoke, and you don't mind breaking a lens, maybe go with this. And all you're giving up is like maybe a little bit of sharpness. I hate how good this is. Like, but you know, good job. Like I'm happy to see all these brands are coming up with different lens for Nikon, for the Z-mount. So I'm happy. I love to see good competition. You know, when there's competition, us customer wins. So anyway, let me know in the comment down below, what do you think and which is the right prime lens for you? Are you looking for the, you know, Z f1.2 lens, the S-line? Or are you looking for the very cheap, the Yongnuo's, you know, whatever line they're called themselves, with only all of them under 500 bucks? Or maybe something in between, you know, the Nikon f1.4, which are still pretty good and right at the price point that might make sense for you. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below and let me know what else you want me to make. Thank you so much. See you next one. Bye.